Welcome back to my channel. It's me, Ange, the girl that never stops talking about books. So today I want to talk about my top 10 books from 2024 because there were a lot of good books last year, but there's 10 that really stood out. I didn't have too hard of a time picking these 10 books out, honestly. Now, I also did want to talk about some of my least favorite books from 2024, but I'm someone who believes in saving the best for last, so we're going to do those first because I want to get that out of the way. Now, none of these books I have physical copies for anymore because I didn't like them. So I either unhauled them or thankfully I read them on Kindle Unlimited so I didn't have to keep them. And the second thing, bear in mind that reading is subjective. So if you love some of the books that I didn't like, that's fine. I love that you love something that you read. It's also okay if somebody doesn't like something. If we all like the same thing, it'd be so boring. So let's get right into it with the books that I liked the least from 2024. The first one and the one that stood out the most to me was Say You Swear by Megan Brandy. Now, my issue with Say You Swear is I don't really like the writing. I've also read, was it like Boys of Bryshaw or something like that? I don't know. I'll put it somewhere. But I also read that and I didn't like that one either. It's the writing style for me. I don't like the way the characters spoke. I felt like the things they were going through were really outlandish for teenagers and I just couldn't connect with anybody. It just wasn't my cup of tea. However, I fully understand all of the hype that this book gets and why so many people love it. I probably would say that Noah was like the most tolerable character for me. But I mean, even then, like, it was just really crazy stuff that was happening, and I just wasn't with it. The next is actually book two in a trilogy, I believe. Book two is the reason why I won't be continuing the series, and I think it's called The Sacred Stones. It was Promise of Paradox. I read that, sat with it. I was like, oh, like I didn't really like the book, but it's fine. I'll be able to get to the third one, and hopefully the third one will like make up for it. Yeah, I've changed my mind. I'm not finishing that trilogy. So the first book was fine. It was fun. It was entertaining. Nothing too high stakes, right? Book two, you spent such a large portion of book two with the main characters refusing to tell each other how they felt about each other and like tiptoeing around each other. It was unbearable. I was fed up by the time we got to the end and there was like maybe some type of resolution between. I couldn't even deal with it. The plot was lost too. Like the plot just completely went out the window in favor of this like whatever that trope is called. I don't know what all the tropes are called. But yeah, I didn't like that one. And initially, like I said, I was going to finish the trilogy. I'm not finishing it. There's so many other books I want to read. I just don't want to give any more time to that series. Now, this one, I can only speak to this specific series because I did read Blood of Hercules by Jasmine Moss, and I really liked it. I thought it was fun, it was entertaining. I'm actually really excited for book two. Now, Psycho Shifters, that series, I think I got maybe like two or three books in. Oh wait, I think I finished that series. I think I might have finished that, but I didn't continue with like whatever the other book is that follows in that universe. Whatever. The point is, I didn't like it. They're both reverse harem, but where Blood of Hercules is kind of like it's always moving. Something's always happening, whether it's in the romance or the plot or the characters. Like something's always happening. Psycho Shifters was very much so like you think that something's always happening, but in reality, it's just a lot of busy work. And it was frustrating to read, especially because there's this romance. Again, it's a reverse harem. There's this romance, and like nothing happens in the romance until like the end, and the end is like such a letdown because it was such a big buildup that you thought more would, and it was just not my cup of tea. Again, that is specific to the Psycho Shifters series universe thing or whatever. The next two have to do with age gap. I don't mind age gap. Okay, I have no issue with age gap if it's done well. My problem with age gap comes when one, she is a teenager and he's like in his 30s or 40s. No, me no likey. I don't understand. I don't know. I have young nieces and nephews, so maybe that's why. She's in high school. She's a senior in high school. She is 18, I believe. He is a construction worker who's like in his 30s or something like that, almost 40. I don't remember. He's old. He's not in his 20s. And he's like working on the site, like on the campus that she goes to school. And then they get married. And I'm like, nope, no, see, no, hard. I didn't finish that one. I literally could not finish it. All of the characters in the book, besides the main female character, main male character, were like, this is not okay. Like, you guys shouldn't be doing this, like, I know you love each other or whatever, but like, no, it really wasn't okay. It really, really gave me the ick. I couldn't finish it. And that's a way to do age gap that will immediately turn me off. Like the moment I realize that she is not in her like mid 20s, I'm down. I'm out. I'm gone. Like I need the FMC to have lived a life before she gets with this man who could literally be her great granddad. That's an exaggeration. You know what I mean. Anyways, that's one way of age gap that I don't appreciate. Again, if you like age gap and you can tolerate that, I love that for you. That means that there's books out there that you'll be able to read that I won't. That's great. But also respect the fact that like I don't like that. That's not my cup of tea. And I'm a coffee drinker. Case in point. Now, the second age gap book wasn't the big age gap that got me. It was the fact that so this is June 1st by Jennifer Hartman. Should have said that first. The age gap in this one was just kind of weird because they're adopted siblings, like they're not actually related, but her family takes him in and raises him pretty much from a kid to an adult. For the majority of June 1st, June was underage. And she's underage, but she's like developing, discovering these feelings that she has for whatever the MMC's name is. I don't know because I didn't finish the book. He, at one point, she's underage and he's like 20 or something. And it just was. And the author kept insisting, like the MMC kept insisting that June was not his biological sister, but then he would do things that kind of went up with her being more sisterly versus it was just not handled well in my opinion. It was just the way that Hartman like wrote it out. It was just the way she handled the like adopted sibling thing, and then the fact that June was a child for the majority of the book while this man at this point, it was just too much for me. I know that it's me. I just am very specific about how certain things could be done in books, and I think that one and Don't Kiss a Bride are two examples where if it's not done in a way where I feel comfortable, I won't be able to enjoy the book. And that's okay because reading is subjective. The next one is Tethered. And I liked the concept, which is why I downloaded it on KU. Thank God I just downloaded it on KU. Because it's kind of like the FMC and the MMC do something happens, and they're tethered to each other. So they can't go too far from each other. And I liked it, like forced proximity. I don't mind that. I actually enjoy it. It was so, like, I think it was page 2, and one of them was already in love with the other one. And I'm like, well, now hold on a second. Do you even know each other? Have you been tethered to each other yet? It was just really fast moving, and I'm not too big on the insta love, insta lust thing. I do like a little bit of tension. I do like a little bit of yearning, at least a little bit of banter, throw in some like snide jokes or something. Tether just moved way too fast for me. I was so confused as to like what was happening and who loved who. It was just really fast and I didn't enjoy it. So I ended up DNFing that one. I don't think I made it past like 20%. I DNF'd really early in that one because I was like, I just can't get with this. It was like immediately wants to like bone her, love her, marry her, have kids with her. And I'm like, whoa, can you even have kids? Aren't you a vampire? I think one of them was a vampire. So yeah, that one wasn't for me. I do like the yearning and the like, oh, just drag it out. Drag it out, but make it worth my time in the end. That was so rude. Is my AC heater, sorry. I do want to say readers are really toxic in my opinion because I just said that I don't mind it if you drag it out and make it like a slow burn with tension and yearning, but just make it worth it in the end. Like that's not a healthy mindset to have. But it's just books, so it's fine. And finally, the last one on the list of books I liked the least from 2024 is The Hidden Falling. I don't know how to pronounce the series name, but it's some weird series name. Enemies to Lovers. This is like enemies to lovers. Like I don't understand how they got to the love from the enemies because they were the type of enemies that like should have stayed enemies and them enemies. I got through book 1. I got to book 2 and then I was done. I was like something happened in book 1 that I get it. It's fictional. It's a dark fantasy. I understand that. But what happened, I just literally could not imagine how the MMC would come back from that. It was almost disgusting. I'm not gonna say disgusting. I was like, oh, that's bad. That's like really bad, like the actual definition of bad. And then I'm supposed to believe that these two are gonna get together after that. Like she's going to forget. No, I'm so sorry. I had to draw the line there. It was just not. I don't know. Like it just wasn't maybe executed well. What happened between the two, and then like in book 2, it almost feels like she was almost immediately starting to forgive him. And I'm like, no, I don't like that. What he did was downright diabolical. For you to come in book two, early book two, and start acting like you're gonna, bye bye. So I DNF that one at book two. I have no interest in going back to that one either. Now, on to my top 10 favorite books of 2024. There's no order to this, it's just 10 of my favorite books. They're not ranked. If you follow me on like TikTok, Instagram, I think those are the only two places I am, you know that I was in my sci-fi bag in November and December. The Protectorate series is so good. I have to finish Catalyst Gate though. I have to finish. I was told it's kind of a letdown, so I'm a little wary of going back in. But I also just don't really want to leave that story, that world. But we'll get there eventually. Chaos Vector, it was so good, y'all. It was weird because Chaos Vector is book two in the Protectorate series, and I felt like I got a little bit more backstory in Chaos Vector than I did in Velocity Weapon. But I genuinely enjoyed it. I loved seeing the characters, like who they were as they were developing into who they're gonna be. It was amazing. And one of my favorite characters comes back in book two, and like he kind of came back a little sassy. I was here for it. I loved this book. It was really well done. The political intrigue is phenomenal. I don't want to give anything away. I don't know how I feel about the different like I guess factions or like levels of the government. Um I'm just gonna say keepers. I don't know how I feel about the keepers. I really don't. I can't tell. And the keepers are split. But anyways, you have to read it. It's really good. I would definitely recommend. This was definitely one of my favorite books of last year, mostly because of Barrow. And if you read it, you'll find out. In 2024, I read The Wall of Winnipeg and Me by Mariana Zapata. She's an autobi romance author for me. It was so good. I don't remember if there's even any spice because if there was, that was not the focal point. Aiden and Van, they live with me rent free. I'm still trying to forget this book so I can reread it. The slow burn, the tension. Oh my God. I was talking about yearning before. Aiden is such a broody, like pessimistic man. And you can just tell that he is yearning for Van. It was so good. This is my favorite romance book of all time. I think I always say, like, oh, it's my favorite contemporary. No, it's my favorite romance of all time. And I can't wait to read more from this author because the way she executed that slow burn, I was on the edge of my seat. I think I read this at my parents' and I was driving back home with my dad. I live 5 hours from my parents. I sat in the back seat and like you couldn't say anything to me. I was reading. I was reading. And then I stayed up all night to finish it. So I finished this in less than 24 hours for sure. So yeah, one of my favorite books. One of my dear friends from TikTok introduced me to Charlie Donnelly. I have read The Girl Who Was Taken and Don't Believe It. And I don't know if I want to do Summit Lake or 20 Years Later, but I had a really hard time picking what was my favorite out of Don't Believe It. I mean, yeah, out of Don't Believe It and The Girl Who Was Taken. They're both like 6-star reads for me. They're so good. It's unbelievable. It's just crazy to me how you could have me reading a book and I don't know anything. Even once you told me, I still don't 100% know. Again, we're toxic. I'm toxic because you like not knowing. I do. I did. I had a lot of fun. And it's like Rocky says, that's who recommended it to me. I was guessing everybody. I guessed everybody. And in Don't Believe It, even when they were telling me who it was, I was like, but there's still 20 pages left. Maybe it's somebody else. Like, what, Ange? It was really good. It definitely had me on the edge of my seat. And afterwards, I spent so long trying to find out if there was like another book with this because the ending of this and the ending of The Girl Who Was Taken, if it was anything else, I think I would have been livid. I would have been annoyed at the endings, but because of how he writes the rest of his story, the endings just are perfect. He's a phenomenal author, especially coming from somebody who wasn't reading any thrillers or mysteries really, and then I pick up two and they're bangers. I loved it. I absolutely loved it, and I probably won't stop reading Charlie Donnelly. I'm reading all of his backlog. You would think that I didn't like The Shadow of the Gods because it took me almost an entire month to finish the book, but it was my first epic fantasy in God knows how long, and I was struggling a little bit. Like there's a glossary at the back, and I was flipping to that almost every other page. And then I picked it up at one point, like I finished a couple other books, picked this up, couldn't put it down, could not put it down. It was so good. And I read The Hunger of the Gods. I did that with the audiobook too, and I loved the audiobook with the book. It was phenomenal. But, and I know that the Hunger of the Gods has all the action and like it's really going down, but The Shadow of the Gods is where I met these characters. This is where I met the characters that I fell in love with and am so invested in, except for Elvar. if you know me, you know that I have a really weird feeling about Elvar, and I am praying that she doesn't do some real crazy in book 3. Um, because yeah, I don't know. I just get this like feeling that she's gonna piss me off in book 3. But book 1 is my favorite. It's first of all, I love the world building. I thought that he handled it in a way where it was like the world building went along with the introduction of the characters, and it just flowed. Like I was never lost, I was never confused. And if I was, it was like a quick, let me reread a sentence and then I catch, you know what I mean? Like it was really well done in my opinion. And yeah, I just have an emotional attachment to Shadow of the Gods because that's where I met Orca and Varg and Bjor. If you've read the series, like Bjor, I'm like heartbroken. I don't know how to feel about him. Like, do I hate you or do I like you? Do I trust you or not? It's just top tier. Definitely, definitely one of my favorite books from last year. I read My Roommate is a Vampire. I don't even remember what I had read before it. I think it was after Say You Swear. Maybe not. I don't remember. But this was a palate cleanser for me. And it was the perfect palate cleanser. I was giggling from page 1 to the end, whatever the end is. It was so much fun. And even the side characters in this book, Reginald, the life of the party. I literally cannot recommend a rom com more than My Roommate is a Vampire. I think I also have My Vampire Plus One. I think that's Reggie's story. Whatever. It was really good. I would 100% recommend. I think it was mostly spice free, but yeah, I love this book. It was a lot of fun, and I think Frederick is like so endearing. He was so lost after being asleep for so long. It was really sweet. Now this book I don't have. It's Hidden Pictures by Jason Rekulak. I have a love hate relationship with Hidden Pictures. I absolutely detested that book, but I thought it was one of the best books I had read last year. It was just so creepy. There was a scene where I guess the girl, I don't remember her name, she was doing something, like she was writing or something like that. And the author just described her feelings so well that it literally made the hair on the back of my neck go up. And I had to put the book down. I couldn't read that book at night. I couldn't read that book when I was home alone. My daughter had to be running around because I was like, at least she'll warn me if something's coming. I don't know. That book had me unhinged. And I sped to finish it during daylight hours because I just wanted to get it over with. It was a really good book. I still haven't read his other book. I don't remember what it's called. The Last One at the Wedding. I haven't read that one yet. But that one was really good. I had to unhaul it though. I couldn't have that book in my home because I felt like it was bad juju coming off of it, you know? Yeah. Anyways. Now, I know that everybody goes on and on and on about ACOTAR. I know that. I know everybody loves that series. I read it, it was great. I do think I have a hot take here because The Kingdom of Crows, in my opinion, was better. Ooh, I personally feel like if you remove the romance from this, the plot would still stand. It would still move forward and be a really good series. I've only read the first 3 where you follow Fallon and Lorca, and then I think there's another 2 books where you follow separate couples. So I have to finish those 2. I absolutely loved this. First of all, the FMC is not this like weak-minded girl. She is pretty strong of herself, even though she's like non-fae in a real fae world, or she's like half fae or something. And then Lorcan is just like I don't know, like he is a shadow daddy, and I liked that. And I like the fact that even though he did do something at one point, it wasn't something that was like super suffocating. I do feel like sometimes when you get in these romanticities, the MMCs tend to like suffocate the FMC, and it kind of bothers me because it's like, oh my god, can you just let her do what she wants just once for a little bit? So yeah, this was really good. I really enjoyed it. I would recommend this to anybody that wants to get into fantasy, but they want to start somewhere where like romance is involved. The Villain series is my personality right now. I finished Vicious right before Christmas, and then I read Vengeful at the beginning of 2025. At this point, I realized that I had already recorded a full review for Vicious, so this is kind of redundant. If you want to watch that, I'm either going to link it on the video if I can, or I will link it in the description so you can see that. It's actually part of my first YouTube video ever. And the last 2 books, these 2 books really put me through the ringer. Like I was struggling. I was struggling to read them. I was struggling to finish them. And they both came this close to putting me in reading slumps. But I absolutely love them. Like as I think about them more and more every day, because I continue to think about them, I absolutely love these books. One of them is a standalone, so there's not anything else going to come out of that, which is fine. I thought that it ended well. The other one, I'm so scared to finish the series. I'm really nervous because, like, okay, chill. That was book one, and you did all that damage. What's going to happen in the next two? You know? Blood over Brighthaven. I thought this book was really hard to read. It was so difficult. I almost couldn't finish it, and it's because the main character is the oppressor. I've never read a book where I am in the perspective of the oppressor, right? So she's doing things and thinking, oh my god, her inner monologue was atrocious. It was honestly horrifying. And I have to, and it made me feel like, oh, like it makes sense because that's how, and I just hated that feeling. I hated the fact that I was like justifying the oppressor. And it's crazy that Emma Wong put me in a position like that, to be honest, especially given it's just like words on a page. I'm not watching something, I'm reading it, but that it was just really powerful writing. And it's just really horrifying. Like the way that these people are able to like run their world, keep their society running is on magic. And the cost of that magic was horrendous. I, again, thought I couldn't finish the book. I was like, I don't know if I could do this. This is actually really difficult to read. But I'm so glad that I did because this is one of those books that doesn't have like a nice, cute little bow at the end. It just has an ending that fits the story and it fits the characters. And while I wish there was more because I want to see more of like Tamil and Kara, I'm also glad that it ended the way it did because it wasn't happy. It was kind of just like survival, I think, and I appreciate that. I also think that people who criticize the book because the FMC isn't likable, I don't think that you're supposed to like her, dog. Like I'm pretty sure you're supposed to be revolted by her. And again, she it was just really hard to read from her point of view and to feel like I was starting to maybe like sympathize. No, it was really, really difficult. It was so hard. But I absolutely loved Blood over Brighthaven, and I cannot wait to read Sword of Kaigen, especially because this is dark academia fantasy. And I think Sword of Kaigen is just like, I think it's like a historical war fantasy or something like that. I don't know. I guess I have to double check that before I say that. We'll X that till I come back. The Poppy War. The Poppy War was such a hard book to read. I took forever to read this book. I was buddy reading it with somebody. We said we were going to go slow. And I just had like a really hard time picking it up and getting into it. It was also around the same time as like the election and stuff. So, my mind was just elsewhere. The Poppy War it was hard. There were a lot of things that happened in the Poppy War that made my skin crawl and kind of made me sick to my stomach, to be honest. I personally have not stopped thinking about these characters. Like, I can't tell you if who's good and who's bad, and I think that's kind of like the point of what R.F. Kuang was trying to do. I hope I'm not butchering it, but I kind of felt like she was really trying to get the reader to understand. It's called the Poppy War. They are fighting for their lives. They're fighting for their loved ones. There's really no such thing as like good and bad in war. It's literally murder. I just like her writing. I just really enjoyed her writing, and I enjoyed the fact that even through these things that were like, oh my god, so stomach churning, I was still able to connect to these characters. I was still able to really become invested in like what they're doing, how they're like where they're going, and what they were fighting for. It is a really tough book to read, though, I will say. And I know a lot of people don't like book one because like Rain is insufferable because she fucking is. She's honestly so annoying. But I also think that Reen is a very realistic fictional character, if that even makes sense. She is literally she's just trying to live. She's just trying to get ahead. It was a really hard book to read. Not as hard as Blood over Brighthaven, I will say. I think that this one, there was a much larger cast of characters that kind of like offset the grimness of it. So it was a little bit easier. But there's a couple of scenes in this book that I was like, what the is going on? Like, that's crazy. And to think, if I'm not mistaken, the Poppy War has a little bit of inspiration from like real history. Like some of the stuff that happened in here, I guess, is real or has like is inspired by real events. That's very eye opening. Let's say that it's very eye opening. But yeah, I absolutely loved it. I'm really scared to pick up the Dragon Republic. I am because again, I have attached myself to some of these characters, and I just don't want anything to happen to them. But this is clearly not a series where there's gonna be this like cute happy ending, and I'm like, well, I there's only so much emotional damage I can take, right? Those are all of my favorite books and my least favorite books from 2024. I think that 2025 is going to be a really good year. I'm really focusing on reading the things that I want to read, the things that I personally enjoy that align with my tastes. So I'm really excited for 2025, and I hope that when I do this video again at the end of the year, I have even more favorites and less least liked, but I guess we'll have to see. Let me know if you've read any of these, what you thought, or if you have them on your TBR for 2025. The ones I did like, I 100% recommend. They were fantastic books, and I'm still thinking about pretty much all of them right now. Like I'm still thinking about what could be, what has been. It's fantastic when writers can put you in a position to like really infiltrate your mind. That sounds like a conspiracy theory. Anyways, I will see you guys next time. Happy reading.